He's the soul reacher. He's the liberation seeker, and he is a true teacher. He's the president and founder of the National Action Network, and he has devoted his entire life to helping our people. He's none other than the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. Hug the person next to you, tell him you love him. Stop the violence. Another Saturday morning for the Saturday Action Rally, and for you that are here at the House of Justice, 106 West 145th Street in the Village of Harlem, and you that are listening live on 1190 WLIB AM in New York. We're happy to be with you another Saturday morning where the action is. Give a hand to our host this morning, Minister Kirsten John Ford. Certainly we have a lot of ground we need to cover. I want to really talk about the gun violence in Texas as we continue to deal with the fight for gun control. I want to also get into a lot of our continued efforts around what we're dealing with in terms of racial attacks, Waffle House and all, and certainly my analysis of the royal wedding. Though I must say Bishop Curry did an excellent sermon, and we were proud of him bringing the words of Dr. King to the chapel this morning and speaking. But before I do, I want to deal with this week. Minister Foy and I stood with the Speaker of the New York City Council at City Hall to deal with the disproportionate amount of arrests that blacks and Latinos do compared to whites. And the fact of the matter is that the only way to really deal with decriminalization is to decriminalize marijuana. The Drug Policy Alliance and others that we have worked with down through the years have raised the data, all of this about what is wrong with marijuana is wrong. There's wrong with tobacco. There's wrong with alcohol. But they are legal. So we are concerned about decriminalization, and we're concerned about ownership of the dispensaries as they're decriminalized. We are disproportionately in jail, but we are not getting, as states decriminalize, states are not having people of color involved in the ownership. So we cannot be the ones that fill up Rikers Island, and after decriminalization, they fill up the bank. I thought that it was an act of courage and a foresight leadership that the Speaker stepped out and made this challenge and took head on the racial disparities And he, and as you heard from our councilman, and others are standing with him. This is an issue that could not be emphasized enough. It's not about whether or not you agree with smoking a joint. It's about whether or not people should be criminalized. See, I keep telling you, especially our church folk, just to deal with criminalization does not alter your morality. You have the right to do things that others consider wrong. I can preach against something, but I don't need to make it against the law. When I was growing up in Church of God in Christ, they said it was a sin for women to wear lipstick. But we didn't ask them to make a law against it. So I want to bring to you the Speaker of the New York City Council, a man we've known a long time. He worked on my campaign in New Hampshire when I was running for president. And not only did that, when you know he's sincere, he brought me down to Greenwich Village to all of the gay bars and telling folk to vote for me for president. When somebody go home and stand up for you, they mean it. Our Speaker, Corey Johnson.
Good morning. I am so happy as always to be here at the House of Justice with my dear friend and our leader, Al Sharpton, the good Rev. I'm also really pleased to be joined by my colleague who has been a real leader on criminal justice reform, Councilmember Roy Lantzman from Queens. I really wanted to just come by this morning to say that what the Rev and I and Minister Foy did with Councilmember Lantzman and other folks in the council on Tuesday in saying that young black and brown men predominantly should not be criminalized for smoking a joint and ending up on Rikers, that was not a one-off deal. It wasn't a let's have a one-day press conference and have fun in front of the cameras and then, go back to business. It was the beginning of a sustained conversation and campaign for us to say we need to change policing in New York City so that black and brown people don't end up on Rikers Island when someone like me, they just walk by on the street if I'm smoking a joint. I don't smoke joints. But if I did, that's what would happen. I've been clean and sober almost 9 years. July 13th will be 9 years clean and sober. My biggest accomplishment in life. And the numbers don't lie. A few months ago, the NYPD said to Chair Lantzman and Donovan Richards, the chair of our Public Safety Committee, that they're just responding based on 311 and 911 complaints. And then when we asked for the data, when we asked for the numbers, when the New York Times and Politico and the Daily News got the numbers and analyzed it, and we at the council did the same thing, we said that, as George W. Bush said, is fuzzy math. Those numbers don't add up. It's not based off of 311 and 911 complaints. The numbers are disproportionately higher in communities of color, where people are getting arrested and their lives are being ruined based off of this. And so I support full legalization, but in the meantime, we're saying that people need to stop being arrested, and people, until we can handle this legislatively, write them a summons. Don't send them to Rikers Island. We think that is the right thing to do here. So I wanted to combine it and stand with Minister Foy and Reverend Sharpton and Councilmember Lantzman and all of you to say, we are going to continue this. The mayor saw our press conference, and I know that he called me and he called Reverend Sharpton, as did Police Commissioner James O'Neill, and they announced that they're doing a 30-day review after we did our press conference on looking at how the NYPD handles marijuana policing in New York City. So we are already getting results, but we need to make sure that this is handled in a just and fair way and not a way that is uneven unfair, insane, and letting people end up on Rikers Island based off of this. So thank you for your support. Thank you to Reverend Sharpton. He saw the article on Monday morning. He texted me, when are we doing a press conference? And we couldn't do it that morning, so we did it the next morning. The other thing I want to say is the city council were in the middle of budget negotiations with the mayor. And our budget has grown in 4 years from 73 billion with a B dollars up to 89 billion dollars. $16 billion growth in 4 years. And the council is pushing and prodding and poking and cajoling and negotiating and rallying and coming to the House of Justice because one of the major things we want is a program called Fair Fares.
Right.
Fair Fares would give half-price Metro cards to people living in poverty. We should not live in a city where each one of us walks into our subway station and someone's begging for a swipe. Can you swipe me on? Can you swipe me on? Because they're trying to get to work or they're trying to get their kid to school. That's not right. And so this program, Fair Fares, would give half-price Metro cards to 800,000 New Yorkers living below the poverty line, individuals making under $12,000 a year, a family of 4 making under $25,000 a year. The mayor has said he wants New York City to be the fairest big city in America, and so we are pushing Fair Fares to make that happen and possible. Thank you all very much. I always love coming to the House of Justice. When I was running for Speaker, I said I'll be back, and I'll be back whenever the Reverend will have me. Thank you all very much.
Carly Johnson, our Speaker, give him a hand. Let me say this before he has to leave. And one, he is right. Minister Foy and I spoke with both the police commissioner and we have, of course, also, I've received a call from the mayor. I also told the mayor we want to go the most expedient route to dealing with Fair Fares because it impacts our community. Brandon Hicks, one of our national co-organizers, has been working on this with the Speaker's office. And there's the discussion also about the millionaire tax and the governor. We want to sit down with everybody, but the question is, while we're deliberating, people are going every day, as the Speaker said, having to beg to swipe or to get a swipe to get on the subway, to just make it to work or make it to look for work. They do not have the luxury of us engaging with Dr. King called the paralysis of analysis. Let us get this done and let us stand up for the people that need to be stood up for. There's no reason to have progressive state and city leadership if we're not going to deal with classism and racism in the South. We're live now on Impact Television. Welcome our Impact family. Give them a big hand. Thank Councilman Landsman as well for being here along with the Speaker. Let me say, first of all, to you that are watching Impact Television, you that want to support or join in our efforts, or you that need a special word of encouragement or prayer in these calamitous times, when you look up at 10 people dead again, and again at a school, it only adds to the trauma of the hour. But prayer changes things and gives us the strength to go on. You can call our prayer line, you can call our landline to support us at 1-877-626-4651. Yesterday, and I'm going to deal with this in the morning, I want you all to really watch Politics Nation tomorrow morning, MSNBC 8 a.m. Yesterday, as President Trump was going through the motions of a prison reform summit, they'd come with a prison reform bill that his son-in-law supports, and they had a summit at the White House. But dealing with part of the criminal justice problem and not dealing with sentencing is to deal with one level of mandatory minimums, but not dealing with what is going to happen in terms of sentencing and what is going to happen when you have an attorney general that is opposed to any kind of sentencing reform, mandatory reform, and told us when he first got in a meeting in his office that all of the commutation of nonviolent drug offenses, the long-term sentences that President Obama was doing, he was ending. He told us that coming in. So that's why I know it was just a show photo op that the president was doing yesterday. To his credit, Meek Mill, who we fought for, and who was on my MSNBC show last Sunday, was invited and decided not to go. And said, I'm not going to be identified with something like that. Now, in the middle of the summit, they had to interrupt and tell them that he's going to make a statement about another shooting in another school, this time in Santa Fe, Texas. What he didn't remark on or comment on is when Parkland happened and the whole nation rose up and the high schoolers called a march and some of the high school leaders came and spoke here on a Saturday, and we went to the march, had buses leave from here, had them at our convention just 3 weeks ago. President Trump got up and expressed sympathy for the shooting, and then turned right around 2 weeks later and went to the NRA convention and rallied with the very folk that are advocating the entire pro-gun industry that has in many ways been the real problem in dealing with this. Before we turn the page on the news, we need to confront the fact that this country will not deal with gun violence. It amazes me how we can just, oh, ain't that a shame? 50-something people killed in Las Vegas, and 2 or 3 days later go back to something else. Oh, ain't that something? When I shot up high school in Parkland, Florida, going to something else. Oh my God, 9 students, 1 teacher dead in Texas. What kind of dress Oprah gonna wear to the wedding? We cannot get so insensitive that we normalize this. Over 20 shootings in schools this year, and it's not even June. 22 to be exact. I'm not talking about 22 shots. I'm talking about 22 mass shootings in schools this year. And they won't even pass background checks. You imagine the conservatives that want voter ID. They want to check all of your ID to make sure you are a citizen, but don't want to do no real checks on you to buy a gun that can kill for. They want photo government ID for you to vote, even if you've been voting there 30 years. But minimum identification and sometimes none to buy a gun, some of which are military-style weapons. There's something sick and immoral about that. want to challenge a lot of our clergy that have been silent on this issue. Anytime children can't go to school and be safe, there was a time parents could call to make sure their child is in school and they're all right. Now you don't know whether it's safer to send them or not send them. Not because there's something wrong with the school, but there's something wrong with a society that allows the proliferation of guns to go unchecked. Why can't they get nothing done? Well, because the gun lobby and the NRA, and they go and deal with those that are in legislative offices. Well, this is an election year. And who are going to be the lobbyists for the people? I tell you who's going to be it. We are. You have got to organize voters because the lobbyists can't lobby you if you are not in office. And if we start showing that we will punish folk at the poll that will not protect our children, the lobbyists lose their power because those that they're lobbying know I won't be here to be lobbied if I keep defying the voters. These are gun laws. Worry about you ain't gonna get all the guns off the street with a law. Well, then why have any law? There's a guy called my radio show. Even if they make the law, they still gonna have guns. They got a law against grand larceny. They still steal it. You don't make laws that are going to absolutely stop everything. You make laws to set the standard of accountability so you bring it down and those are held accountable. You ain't no genius to figure out laws are not going to stop everything. But the laws are not even there. What kind of people would sit up and watch a continuity of children being shot at in school and can't muster enough morality to even vote to stop military-style weapons? Right? The other part of it is, and that's why I challenge the clergy, is that there is this glorification of violence in the culture that we won't speak to. When you are dealing with every television show, every movie, every song glorifying violence, the subtlety of that is that you're saying to our children that the way to deal with their conflicts is with violence. What if the images that they see and emulate settle their differences with shootouts? Then why do you think that is not going to be reflected in their behavior? I mean, just look at your television, look at the things on the internet. We're in a digital age. You don't even have to look at television. Look at what is programmed that your children take down off live stream. You put TV in the room now with your kids, they may never turn it on. They got these things that they watch through their smartphone and through their iPads. And they got these video games that teach you how to be violent and insensitive. And if all you're doing on a video game for hours every day is shooting, you think you're playing a video game in real life because you go in the school with the same behavior you do on the video game. You know, my mother raised me, and my mother had to drop out of school at a young age. So she never took a degree in parenting. But she made me study a Bible every day and made me say my blessings before I ate. It wasn't just religious fanaticism. it was putting in my mentality and spirit something that sensitized me a certain way. If you allow your children to be sensitized with violent video games and violent music and violent television and movies, they will soon come with what you got in them. Jesus said, you're not defiled by what goes in you, you're defiled by what comes out. Well, ain't nothing coming out of you that's not in you. And we as a culture put in these instincts of total devaluing of human life. What make a 17-year-old kid just decide I'm gonna buy t-shirts and post it, said I was born to kill? There's a cultural element in that. Well, rather there's mental illness. Well, there's no programs, legislation, nothing dealing with mental illness. So part of activism is to address what is needed to be addressed. That's why we've been on this gun violence thing. Today is Malcolm X's birthday. People will be talking in some quarters, not mainstream, but in some quarters about Malcolm today. I come out of Dr. King School, but always respected Malcolm. His wife, widow, Dr. Bishop Evans, my two daughters' godmother. So I know Malcolm, know his daughters that survived, both him and his wife. What made Malcolm relevant? A lot of y'all, I read a lot of these blogs, some of the staff be sending me, and a bunch of academic analysis that never ever came and down on the ground to see what movements was. They analyzed movements they were never in. One guy said, wrote a whole thing with me, never talked to me. Just gonna psychoanalyze me and never talk to me. How you gonna psychoanalyze somebody that you never asked them what they were doing? Now you may not agree with it, but if you're a real scholar, you are not afraid to confront the subject that you've been a scholar of. And I read all this stuff. What made Malcolm relevant is he addressed the issues that we was confronted with at that time. What made Dr. King relevant is he dealt with what was going on at that time. The reason why a lot of us are irrelevant is you will not deal with what is going on right now. You have an academic analysis in the academy. You have a theological analysis in the church. And the people are in the streets and in the public housing in between the university and the church being discriminated against, being victims of violence. And you are not addressing none of them. And then those of us that are there in the gap addressing them, we're demagogues. No, we're present. You're demagogues because you are making a living off of analyzing folk you won't even talk to. I just ain't figured it out. I'm working with Minister Marshall, Minister Ford. I'm trying to figure out what is lower, pimp professor or pimp preacher. One in the same, making a living off of talking and analyzing and preaching to people they avoid. Speaking for masses that they have nothing to do with. You realize all the major academic institutions in this town have nothing to do with the community? Think about it. They get degrees in studying us like we're animals or something. I was talking, I'm not going to call out none students, but I was talking to some of the students, and they were talking about, well, we don't see really what's going on. Where do you live? In the dormitory. Where you go all day? Class. Why are you going to see anything? If you go from the dorm to the class, talking to a nitwit that don't know nothing but what he read. Why don't you come down the block? We meet every Saturday morning. There folk meet all during the week. There's plenty of things happening. But you're in the business of learning how to get paid to break folk down rather than to lift folk up. That's where Malcolm came from. And assume people are just stupid. People been for years following the Dr. Kings and the Malcolms, and then they went to the Jessies and the Als, and like, you know, just 50 years, Negroes just been stupid. We ain't got no sense. We just follow folk because they wave a magic wand. Maybe because we fulfill needs they had that you would not even address. So, we really need to deal and continue to deal with pressuring in an election year. Here's the content. We sent out this week to all of the thousands of delegates that came to our convention the action points that we come out of the convention with. One of them is dealing with this gun violence. That ought to be a litmus test on elected officials all over the country. You that are watching me on Impact, you that listen to LIB, we need to go to every elected official by email, by town hall, calling candy night. What are you going to do about gun legislation? Well, remember why is voting going to do it? Because that is how they get in. You cannot affect legislation without affecting legislators. I think that we also need to continue on these fights around the racial disrespect. I have a young man on in the morning that was attacked by police in Warsaw, North Carolina at a Waffle House. 2 weeks ago, I was in Mobile, Alabama with Shakisha Clemens, who was attacked and dragged by police at a Waffle House. Attorney Ben Crump, that's handling both cases, be on with me in the morning. We need to not only deal with the Waffle House, we need to deal with the police that have consistently now, in both the Starbucks and Waffle House situations, came and made arrests there was no probable cause for, and then abused the people, chokehold and put the kid in Warsaw up against the plate window, and in Mobile dragging and to the point of disrobing this young lady that we went and dealt with down in Mobile, Alabama. Don't miss the point. Yes, we need to deal with the companies. Yes, we need to deal with Starbucks, who's now responding. Yes, we need to deal with Waffle House, who is not responding. But we also need to deal with the police. The manager in the Waffle House and the manager in Starbucks didn't make the arrest. The police did. So to settle with Starbucks and the victims and not deal with suspending and disciplining the police that made an arrest that had no probable cause. What did you arrest him for? The manager couldn't arrest him. The police arrested him. When you got to the store, Starbucks, and they were sitting there, what was the cause of the arrest? What was the cause in the Waffle House in Mobile? What was the cause in North Carolina? Don't punk out on the police question here. That's why it goes back full circle. Started with marijuana arrests, all the way to arresting these franchise stores. Full circle, we have got to deal and legislate. When you hear Councilman Landsman talking about how the data shows that in area, we said at City Hall the other day, where policing is in this country, until police know that they are subject to accountability, they will continue this. That they had more calls about marijuana, for example, in white areas than black areas, but made more arrests in the black areas. That's a police problem. You look at the data. They had the data in Queens Village, which is mostly black, and the data in Breezy Point. Breezy Point is a part of Queens that's mostly white. Some of y'all think I'm talking about Breezy the rapper. I'm talking about Breezy Point. Less arrests, more calls. That's a police issue. Lady questioned, why are you charging me for food utensils in Mobile, Alabama? Her friend says, well, give us the number to corporate headquarters. We want to put a complaint. Managers say, y'all get out. They say, we ain't leaving. They say, get out. We ain't leaving. We got a right to get the number. Call the cops. The police drag and arrest them. That's a police issue.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Two blacks sitting in Starbucks, waiting on a guy to come talk about a real estate deal. Managers say you're laundering. They say, no, we're not. We're waiting on somebody. No, you ain't waiting on nobody. You're laundering. No, we're not. Call the police. Police come. Arrest the boys. Even though they say we're waiting on somebody. That's a police issue. Yes, if you're scared, say you're scared. But don't sit around writing a bunch of intellectual theories about something that is as plain and simple as day. Getting a bunch of polysyllabic words so you can have some academic masturbation in your dormitory. That's all you doing. Our people are suffering. We ain't got time for you to be playing with us. I'm going to critique leadership on Malcolm's birthday. Really? Like somebody care what you got to say, but somebody as irrelevant as you, they ain't got nothing to do but sit around reading your stuff. You know, some folks just like to sit around all day long write love letters. They don't even date, just write love letters. I love you. I love you too. Thinking of you. Thinking of you too. Smiley face with a heart. Text that. Text back you winking eye. I mean, when y'all gonna hook up and do something? I mean, go to dinner or something. What is all this? Our I was so proud of the Episcopal Bishop Curry this morning as he did the message at the royal wedding, talking about the love ethic and quoting about Dr. King. And I thought about how I'm going to England next week, and I thought about how there was slavery in Great Britain before it was here. They freed slaves before here. But then, just like the U.S., they engaged in allowing blacks to come from Africa and to come from the Caribbean, but wouldn't allow them full citizenship. So that was a part of their kind of racism. Just like in the United States, they freed the slaves, but didn't give the slaves equality. There's a difference between freedom and equality. You could be free and unequal, and therefore can't get ahead. So even when the fight, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the fight against public accommodations, they finally said, okay, we'll give you the Civil Rights Act. You can eat wherever you want. You just ain't gonna have a job to afford it. So it is our contention that we need to deal with this whole question of where we are in this battle. I'm going to deal with this when I get to England. Of the backlash that we're seeing from Europe to the United States, of a changing world that they cannot deal with. What do you mean, Sharper? Well, when you look up and you see in Windsor Castle a young woman of mixed race with a black mama sitting there, with a black preacher, marrying into the royal family.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Talk about it.
They hid the fact that there was a black and African-blooded queen, 57 years, married to King George III, named Sophia Charlotte. Sophia Charlotte said 57 years, they hid that. But Meghan is too well known. Y'all ain't gonna hide Meghan. In fact, she brought mama there from L.A. So let me tell you the reason that causes some reaction. When you have little white girls in Arkansas look up and say, I want to be beautiful and smart like Michelle Obama. I want to dress like the Obama girl. That's where that white supremacy is questioned. And that's where parents in their living room say, we got to do something. That's what Trump played on. Is we're losing control of even our own children. When you got little white girls now in Wales saying, I want to be like Meghan. There's a shift worldwide that white male supremacy is having its last breath, and you can do what you want. It's not gonna last. I know what's happening. That's why they're cracking up. Because that old world is passing away. They never thought they'd see a day that we'd go from being hung and lynched in the square after Sunday church. Whites would go down to the square of the city and have lynching of blacks. And we went from lynching to being attorney general. They never thought they'd see that day. They never thought when they shot Martin Luther King and killed him on a balcony of a black motel in Memphis, that 40 years later we'd be standing on the Truman balcony in the White House as the President of the United States. They are losing their mind because their world is passing away where they are the standard. Where they decide what is beauty. Where they decide what is of intellectual depth. I'm proud to go to black church, but in their mind, that's shucking and jiving. Well, according to who? Black church brought folk from slavery that didn't know their names, that didn't know their heritage, they couldn't marry their own children's mother and was able to sustain them. It is the most powerful church in the country because it gave people a sense of survival that all of you proper trained churches didn't have to bring people through. Well, Reverend, where were you trained? I was trained helping to lift the downtrodden. I was trained feeding the hungry. I was trained caring for the outcast. Where were you trained? How to quote scriptures that you'll never enact. Jesus didn't have a seminary on turning water to wine. He turned the water to wine. He didn't have classes on healing the sick. He told Bartimaeus, open up your eyes. Running around, making theory out of what ought to be action. I was growing up, we didn't have no health insurance. Mother takes some baking soda and some water, stirred up. Till you swallow that, slap some olive oil on you, say a prayer. And I don't know how, but I felt better. Mama had a scripture for everything. You sit around studying illness rather than executing healing. That's why that black man from Chicago, that bishop, could stand up in front of all of them in the chapel today and say, I don't care where y'all come from and all your royalty, that until you learn how to love everybody. The love ethic. Dr. King fought with the love ethic. Dr. King said, I don't care what you do to me, you're not going to bring me down to your level. You're not going to make me you, because you lose the fight when you become what you fight. And many of you become the flip side of what you fight. You got to learn how to fight Trump and not become Trump yourself. I was reading the scripture, and I'll leave y'all with this. This is good for Trump. They say Trump likes to sit around watching a lot of television. Maybe he got an impact. I was watching as Trump was walking around, strutting around, going to Marine One. And it reminded me of the Bible, 2 Kings, where it talked about Naaman. Naaman was a great conqueror out of Syria, who had conquered Israel. And Naaman was such a conqueror that he became a celebrity figure in Syria. He walked the streets, children would run out waving Naaman. Women would wave at him. And he would strut around with his breastplate on and his military helmet. The great conqueror of the Israelites. But what they didn't know is that Naaman was suffering from leprosy. Everybody that y'all getting impressed with their strut, you don't know they could be eroding on the inside. And when they had conquered Israel, he brought back a maidservant in his house. And she sensed that something was wrong, because leprosy gives an odor. That's why some of y'all see family members ain't as impressed with some folk you are, because they can get the odor at home. You know what you look at, they know what you smell like. Hello. So the maidservant kept smelling this leprosy odor, helping him to take his breastplate off, seeing him taking his military helmet off and all his gear. Because you can't hide the coming through the pores of your skin. And finally she said to him, she said, you know, as this thing was getting worse and worse, she said, there's a prophet in the nation you conquer. Sometimes, Mr. Trump, the healer is among the folk you most abuse. You know where Israel is. Naaman, you conquered it. There's a prophet there. And he's the only one that can help you with this leprosy. None of these doctors, none of these magicians, none of these soothsayers are going to help you. And in a minute, the whole country going to know you're suffering from leprosy, because it's eroding from the inside. Oh yeah, Trump, you strutting and all, but you got an erosion on the inside. Every night, one of your folk is snitching on you. Every day, another story. Yeah, you strutting. Yeah, they clapping when you go in their town. But you know it's eating you up on the inside.
That's good. Tell them, brother.
And no matter how much you tweet, we can smell the stench. She said, if you go to Elijah, he can tell you what to do. Finally, he couldn't take it no more. Naaman said, he went to the king of Syria and said, I need to, in private, make a deal with who we got over Israel. There's this prophet I need to see named Elisha. I'm suffering. I don't want it out, but I got to go. And they quietly made arrangements. And he went to Israel, and he was taken by a military escort to Elisha's house. Let me show you the difference between a prophet and a preacher trying to profit. They say when he got to Elijah's house, now this is the conqueror of Syria. Say Elijah didn't even come out to greet him. Then he come out and talk to him, say he sent a messenger out. Some of y'all, some big shot come in your church, you sit the choir down. You tell the missionaries quit praying, and you put the great mighty up. Elijah didn't even give them an audience. He sent a messenger out and said, tell the great conqueror, Nathan, that I know his problem, man. If he wants to be healed, he got to go down to the Jordan, the muddy Jordan, and tell him dip down 7 times, and you will be healed. Messenger went out and said, Naaman, you ain't gonna see Elijah, but he gave you a message. Go down to the Jordan and dip down 7 times. First of all, Naaman's insulted. What do you mean he's not gonna see me? He started leaving, and as he was angered and insulted and leaving, he saw the Jordan. He said, they expect me to dip down in that muddy water. Aren't there clean waters in Syria? Some of his boys said, but you better dip down because suffering. And he went and got in this muddy water. Yeah. And he went down and he kept questioning, do I got to do more? They said 7 times. I want you, Mr. Trump. Yeah. Listen to Meek Mill. Meek Mill said you need to go to the hood. Where you need to go. And you need to dip down a few times. You need to dip down and one time voting rights, come up, go back down, one time affordable care, go back down, come back Medicaid, go back down, come back DACA for those immigrants. You got to go at least 7 times. And if you dip down in the muddy people, God will make a way out of no way. Because just like everybody was singing this morning at the royal funeral, they was not singing the great anthems of the cathedrals of the Western world. They got Eddie James song. I preached Eddie James' funeral. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I don't have no money. I don't have no great assets. I don't own property, but God gave me a little light. And I'm gonna let it shine. Shine like Elisha shined it. Shine like Elijah shined it. Get your light out in the midst of the darkness of this country. Let your light shine. Let your light shine. Let your light shine. Everybody sing.
Brother, the Executive Vice President and General Counsel